Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Rhode Island Summer of Soccer podcast as we continue our celebration of culture, community, and competition. Today's episode is a powerful reminder that soccer isn't just a game, it's a global connector that brings people, history, and opportunity together. I'm your host, Joe Kayata, a lifelong Rhode Islander and someone who's been lucky enough to cover some of the world's biggest sporting events as a sportscaster. Today, we're honored to be joined by Rhode Island Congressman Gabe Amo, a proud Pawtucket native, Rhode Island's first black member of Congress, and the son of immigrants from West Africa with family roots in Ghana and Liberia. With the Ghana national team selecting Bryant University and Graduate by Hilton Providence as their official FIFA World Cup base camp this summer now carries a deeper meaning, not just for Rhode Island, but Congressman Amo as well. Congressman, welcome to the show.
It's great to be on with you.
All right. Let's talk about the big news. Ghana base camp here in Rhode Island. What does that mean for you?
Look, it means a whole lot. One, the World Cup is coming quickly, and it's going to be in our area, and I think it's going to infuse a lot of energy. The second, you have Bryant University, a great hub of higher learning in Rhode Island's first congressional district, so I'm proud to represent it. And of course, number 3 in having the Ghana national team, also known as the Black Stars, placing their bet on Rhode Island to be their home and their platform for success in the beautiful game that's going to be played around this country this summer. So it's really exciting. And of course, as the son of 2 West African immigrants, my dad from Ghana, and getting to hold this office at this time, it's poetic in lots of ways, just like any good sports story is.
Yeah, let's talk about the economic impact, because that's always a big thing, especially here in Rhode Island, with it coming just miles up the road in Foxborough. People are going to be coming here, staying here, flying in, trains, buses, everything. What does this mean for Rhode Island?
Well, it's a big deal. It's a great opportunity to highlight our state, not only the places where the players will be resting their heads in Providence, but to show off our amazing state. They're going to have great food. They will hopefully be able to enjoy Rhode Island hospitality and the friendliness of our people. And of course, the proximity to where they'll be playing their critical match. I'm really excited to see it all.
Yeah, that's a huge factor. Soccer is more than a sport in West Africa. It's culture, it's community. How does hosting Ghana allow Rhode Island to connect to that global story?
Well, look, Rhode Island is inherently a place where people came from a lot of other places, unless you are indigenous, to start a life and make our great state what it is today. And I often tell the story of my family because I think it connects us all, right? Someone before us demonstrated a great amount of hard work, grit, resilience, and determination for our tomorrows to be better than today. That's something I say often. And to connect the cultures of this area, not only Ghana, but also Cabo Verde that we'll have in the World Cup. I think it's going to be a point of pride for progress for a lot of people to be able to celebrate both the countries that they've come from, but what we are doing here in Rhode Island to put our best foot forward and show off our state.
Yeah, and it's not just Ghana. It's going to be people from really all over the world converging on this area. Rhode Island is small, but obviously we pack a big punch when it comes to hospitality.
Big time.
You got the beaches, you got the restaurants, you have everything here in Rhode Island. Can you talk about that factor of having everything here and being so close to Foxborough?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you point out that there will be so many cultures benefiting. I, in Congress, am the co-chair of the UK caucus in the House. Right. So big match on June 23rd is Ghana versus England. And, you know, we have more than fish and chips is what I say to my English friends. And they're going to get to see that and experience it and taste it firsthand. But to your point of proximity, I mean, you will have people coming here who will be able to see the best beaches in America, to see the history of our place, especially in the 250th year of our great nation. They will see the Gilded Age and see the mansions in Newport and what that meant to getting to experience rich cultural traditions in the heart of places like Broad Street in Providence or Broad Street or Dexter Street in Central Falls. We've got such a mix of activity, from history to food to exploring the outdoors. It's all here, and people are going to see that in force this summer.
As we mentioned, you grew up in Pawtucket, attended local schools, and now represent the same communities that you were raised in. What message does it send to Rhode Islanders, especially first-generation kids, to see a team like Ghana training in their backyard?
Well, look, it puts Rhode Island on a global stage, first and foremost, but it also makes it real. It makes the games not just something that you watch on TV, but a factor in our lives. And what we'll see is, it's sort of like when you watch a Patriots game and they show images of the places and the streets that you've walked on and you've been. It would say that we can do big things. A kid from Pawtucket can serve you in Congress, and someone with an immigrant story and background can feel connection to this historic tradition of soccer being played here. And it really just illustrates that we punch above our weight in all ways, whether it's us as our individual communities to the individual people that make up our resilience here in our state.
Mayor Rivera was on a past episode, and she said representation matters. When you see people like you, same skin color, same language, that it matters to these kids in Central Falls, Providence, wherever in Rhode Island. As a congressman, what does that mean to you for kids to see themselves in positions in? You're a congressman. Yeah,
look, I think it matters, right? Because you cannot often dream of what you can't see. And imagine, and you have to test the limits of your imagination sometimes if you haven't seen anybody set that example. And I often say, I ran for Congress not to make history, but to illustrate the heights of our abilities. And that's the work that we do on behalf of people to make people's lives better. But there's no particular license that anybody owns on contributing in public service. And similarly, there should not be a limit to aspirations for anyone based on who they are, on where they come from, the zip code they reside in. If you want to work hard, you should be able to get ahead and make meaningful contributions in life. And that's why representation matters, because it's just that kindling for the strong fires of people's potential.
Soccer in Rhode Island, I think, is at an all-time high between RIFC, the local colleges doing so well. You got the Revs, now this. Every person that we always talk to, former athletes, they say that when they were a kid, there was that moment where they saw a player, or Jeff Cameron, who was on the U.S. team, who went to URI, Hall of Famer. He said there was a moment in 94, he went to a World Cup game, and he saw what happened. And he went back to his dad that night and said, I want to be there one day. I want to represent my country. And that fueled him. What's the message to young kids who may go see Ghana practice or may go to a game and fuel them to reach for the stars one day?
Yeah, it means, look, if you can dream it, it can come true. And I remember 94, I was about 7 years old. And I never thought about soccer. Now, I didn't ultimately play any soccer. I'm going to, out myself there. I was a high school football player, pretty mediocre at that, but we did win some championships at Moses Brown. But I'll tell you, seeing that piqued my interest. Right. And I am certain that if we do it right, there will be more interest, more activity. And there's so many great connective opportunities that lie ahead with the World Cup to all sorts of enrichment activities. I think about groups that I have spent time with, like Project Goal and others, that find the possibilities presented by engagement in soccer. And what that means for college opportunity, what that means for leadership development. And so all of this is intertwined, right? It's not just about sports. In many ways, it's more than just a game. And I think we will see young people unlock a lot of what their imagination might be able to offer them when they watch the sport played on the pitch.
Food and culture is a big thing that Rhode Island brings. Can you touch on people who are coming to this area? Like, we got the best of the best from really everything. You want Italian, you got Italian, Portuguese. Like, can you touch on what Rhode Island brings from that hospitality standpoint?
Well, look, I think we are going to be probably the best food location of any of the areas that are hosting matches. We're going to be one of the best. And I say that as someone who, I lived in England briefly for a couple of years after undergrad. I was studying at Oxford, and there's no Federal Hill in London, right? You might be able to find some Italian food, but there isn't any of that. There, you are not going to find doughboys and chowder and clam strips, in some of those places. So I just am excited to see what it will mean for our hospitality industry, an industry that is so resilient, right? They have to deal with weather. They had to deal with the COVID-19. They had to deal with so much. This is a time to shine. And, we often see it when you see the Beard Award, James Beard nominations. There are always Rhode Island chefs and restaurants and bars. We know how to show people a good time. And, I don't reveal the favorites because I get into trouble. I got a lot of people in the industry, but I will say you should spend your money all around this town if you're coming because you will do no wrong in any decision. So that's the PSA. Come to town, spend your money, go to something different every night. Yeah. And you will see something remarkable from our great hospitality community.
If members of the Ghana delegation, are out and about in Providence, they have a lot to offer right in that one little area when they step out.
Yeah. Hopefully there's a water fire around this time. That would be great. Always a gem. If they're into art, you got the RISD Museum. If you want to stroll Federal Hill, of course, they should do that. They will literally every single doorfront of a restaurant will be something that is going to be open and welcome to them. I would encourage them to enjoy some time along the water. You've got the Hot Club there. You've got India Point Park. So there's so many things. Go see, visit Brown University. See where, we produce such intellectual powerhouses right here. I mean, there is all in walking distance. They get to experience so much more. I would say more than anybody else, pound for pound, around this country.
We always talk about the economic impact, but what is the long-term impact that an event like this, because we were already talking about 94. Both of us have been talking about 94. Yeah. So what is that impact that you hope 20 years later people are saying 2026?
I think the biggest thing will be exposure to new audiences, right? It will be, people who are coming for matches, but it'll also be journalists. It will also be people who are coming for the sort of ancillary events that are related to the games, who just might think when they're, on their travel website, maybe we should consider Providence. Maybe I should think about venturing there. I do think it plants seeds that will grow for a time to come. And I think because we are a convenient, accessible, desirable location, it will also mean things for our conventions and other events that come to the area. It will mean things for our wonderful airport, right? We always got to shout out the airport and the great people who lead that, from our TSA agents to the management. It is friendly, it's welcoming, it's bright. The bathrooms are the best airport bathrooms in America. And so there are really sort of an endless set of new opportunities for people to understand why we think Rhode Island is so special. And over time, that's a sort of reputational benefit that you get from participating in a real effort to boost our local economy.
Congressman, getting back to Team Ghana, when you see Ghanaian soccer fans in Providence, how can we welcome them into our community?
Well, people from Ghana are often described, and this is not my biases revealing themselves, as some of the friendliest people in all of Africa. Okay. And a staple greeting is Akwaaba. Say it with me, Joe. Akwaaba. There you go. And that is welcome. Welcome. And that is sort of the Ghanaian culture. It's about bringing people together. Community is very strong. So all the vendors, all the restaurants, all of the coffee shops, all the bars, you see, folks who might be wearing a jersey. You gotta, you don't want to identify everybody. But if they're wearing the jersey, if they're showing the Ghana colors, say Akwaaba. Welcome them because that is one of the sort of highest forms of showing that you appreciate somebody. and their presence.
Are there any Ghanaian restaurants, groups in this area that could attract business or, people coming to them?
Well, look, specifically in the Ghanaian community, in terms of restaurants, I don't know if there's a specific one, but there are a bunch of West African related restaurants. Just downtown, there is Suya Joint, which is on Westminster Street. And there's also the Village Restaurant that is also downtown. So there will be food that tastes closer to home, that's in the broader tapestry of West Africa. But there are others around the area. And I know if folks want to have some of their favorite dishes, I'll tell you one of my favorite dishes from Ghana is called fufu.
Okay.
It is basically a dumpling that is of mashed plantain or yam. It basically with a soup over it that's like a chicken soup, but like spicier. Right. And that's a staple dish. So I am certain the team may be bringing their own chefs, but they'll be able to try some things that taste like home. And if not, I have family members who might do some cooking for them if they'd like.
And speaking of that, I know we touched on it off the top, but how proud is your family, right? When you talk about your family, to have you where you are today, and then to have Ghana come here, and it's like a perfect combination.
Yeah, look, I hope my family's proud of me. We don't talk about it that often, largely because I'm always working. I'm always somewhere. And so it does make being a son and a brother and a cousin a little harder than for most. But I'm grateful that I get to carry with me the real sweat equity of others. And that's all the people in my life who have contributed to my opportunity to serve. And I'm grateful for that. And, as I look, broadly what it means for the diaspora of Ghana, I certainly heard from people around the country and frankly, around the world after I won. And every time, I might do international news on the BBC or something like that, I'll get a note from a cousin in a far-flung place or someone connected to my family, and that's special. And it's less about me and more, it helps me understand the consequence and the purpose that I have in this work, that it's not about me, it's about a lot of people who find faith in the people who work in politics and government. And that's something that I want to make them proud about every single day I work. And, my constituents here give me a great amount of grace and are letting me get to work and try to help them make their lives better. That's ultimately what this is about. So on all accounts, from my family to the diaspora to the people I get to serve, I'm grateful to be doing this work.
Well, it's going to be a fun summer ahead. Before we wrap up, though, we always end things here on the Summer of Soccer with a one-touch lightning round where we get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready for it?
I'm as ready as it can be.
All right. Quick questions, quick answers. What sport did you love growing up as a kid in Pawtucket?
Tied between basketball and football.
Okay. All right. Favorite comfort food from your childhood?
Pizza.
Okay. Any specific one? What's the best pizza in Rhode Island?
Not doing it. That's a trap. They're all good.
They're all good. Good answer. One Rhode Island tourist spot that any visitor must check out.
Wow, this is a tough one. Look, I would say anything highlighting our coastline. So it could be anything, but I think that is probably our most unique and special thing.
One customary Rhode Island food staple that our visitors need to try, like Dell's Hot Wieners, Coffee Milk, Red Strip Pizza. Is there anything specific that is a must try?
Oh, I think it's a hot wiener, and you got to wash it down with some coffee milk. Can't get it anywhere else.
Classic Rhode Islander right there.
There we go.
All right. If an international visitor only had one day in Rhode Island next summer, where should they go? And I know we touched on the beach, but we can highlight something else.
Okay. If you had one day in Rhode Island, look, maybe it's my bias, but I think you should go to the State House. I think Rhode Island has this very special place in American history. In 250 years, you got one day. Live in that history for a day.
Good tip right there. Finish this sentence for me, Congressman. Rhode Island is small, but
mighty.
Good one.
I know it's the obvious one.
Yeah, it's obvious, but yeah, I like it. And finally, what word would you hope visitors say about Rhode Island after they return home following the World Cup?
Friendly. I want them to see that the fundamental good of Rhode Islanders, our big hearts, our care and concern for others, and our willingness to show off and puff our chest out and say this is a great place to be and we want to show you, that's going to come out. And so that's a long way of saying friendly is how I want people to feel.
I like that. And before we wrap up, you just made me think of one other question for you. What would your message be to Rhode Islanders who have the opportunity to welcome the world, whether it's just welcoming people, whether it's small business owners? What's your message to Rhode Island that we're going to be on the center stage come this summer?
Yeah, look, my message is let's do what we always do. We are small but mighty, as I said. We are always punching above our weight, and what we have an immense amount of that makes us a very united place is pride. And so let's be prideful in all the good ways as we ensure that we contribute to what is going to be an amazing celebration, not only for our state, our region, but also our country.
Incredible. Congressman Amo, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing such a powerful perspective on what it means for Rhode Island and for you personally to welcome Ghana to the Ocean State during World Cup this summer.
It was a pleasure to chat with you, and everybody enjoy the World Cup.
All right. For more information, visit risummerofsoccer.com and follow Rhode Island Summer of Soccer on social media for updates, events, and ways to get involved. I'm Joe Kayata, and this has been the Rhode Island Summer of Soccer podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode as we prepare for a summer to remember.